Thank you, Amy.
You just bear with me one moment. Okay, Chair, over to yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Very Little Morgan Council Corporate and Performances Scrutiny Committee on the, I'm trying to think what the day is today, 26th of March. So if we could just start with announcements before we get into our agenda for everybody. So can I remind everybody present that this remote meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and then this recording will be archived for future viewing. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please use the remote raise hand function located in the bottom hand side of the screen? And please be patient and aware that there may be a slight time lag. You don't need to press the button again. If you've raised your hand via the remote function and you're not subsequently invited to speak, please turn your camera on or place a message in the chat function. When you're invited to speak, please can you ensure that your microphone and camera is switched on so we can both see you and hear you. Once you've finished speaking, remember to turn your activation button off so as not to delay any other participants from coming onto the screen and to avoid background noise when other participants are speaking. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. And if anybody has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, let me know or let one of the Democratic Services officer know. So welcome committee members, non-committee members, officers, and any members of the public who are watching us at home. And if we move swiftly on to our agenda, part one, apologies for absence. I've had one from Councillor Johnson. I don't know, Amy, if you've had any?
No others to myself, Chair.
And possibly Councillor Hamilton, or do we have Councillor Hamilton? I wasn't sure if I saw him on the list.
No, Chair, he's not online, so okay. I know that we are noting his apologies. So his as well.
Yeah, thank you ever so much. If we move then on to agenda item 2, this is the minutes from our meeting held on the 19th of February. For everybody who was at that meeting, hopefully you've absorbed the contents of the minutes. And if you're happy and believe they're a true representation of the debate, can I have a hand to move, please? Thank you, Councillor Goodchon and Councillor Hanks. Thank you very much. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Nature of such interest. Do we have any today, please? No? Okay. Marvellous. We shall move on then. Agenda item 4. This is a report from the Director of Corporate Resources. This is a report that this committee requested following the Q2 overspend position in relationship to social services and the funding position and the relevant cost pressures. Committee asked for it because it is a particularly high spend area. We appreciate that we have the data and we wanted to understand what was underneath that data, try and find out exactly where those cost pressures lie, if it was something that the service area were looking at and hopefully trying to find ways possibly of doing things differently, and what our future plans were to try and address the pressures on the service. So that was the reason for our request for the additional information. Really pleased that we've had a comprehensive report back, and I think, do we have Lance with us today, Lance Carver, to just, or is it Matt? Matt's going to start. And Lance. Lance has got his hand up too. Wonderful. Yeah. We've got 2 experts in the room. Thank you.
I'm going to briefly introduce the report, and to be honest, you've said and made a number of the points that I was going to make myself, Councillor Prothero. So everyone, you will recall when we met back on the 18th of December, seems quite a while ago now, to consider the Q2 revenue monitoring. There was a fair amount of discussion around the unplanned use of reserves and a lot of the focus of attention on the social care pressures, but also the challenges we're having with school deficits. Subsequent to that, the head of strategy, community learning and resources for learning skills has given quite a detailed presentation, to which all members were invited. That was on the 17th of January, setting out the work being undertaken with schools to manage their deficits. We had a specific recommendation from this committee, that was that the Director of Social Services be requested to provide more detail relating to the cost of social care and any social care benchmarking that's available for the committee to consider. And that's why this comprehensive paper is in front of you this evening. I've said this back in December and I'll repeat it at the moment. It's pretty much fair to say that social care is probably the most complex directorate of the council in terms of budget setting and monitoring. And it's not surprising that it's given significant focus here. But also it's worth noting the monthly budget programme board that Lance Carver, the director, chairs, along with his management team and also the cabinet member, and that's supported by myself or my deputy Gemma Jones, and also representation from the finance business partner. Lance, as we've just mentioned, is here to hear your comments and field questions, and we also have the members of his management team present this evening as well. So Rachel Evans, who heads up Children's and Young People Services, Jason Bennett, who heads up Adult Services and Vale Alliance, and Ian McMillan, who heads up Resource Management and Safeguarding. The key issues are summarised in the executive summary, so I'll only really briefly run through those before inviting questions. Yes, the council is experiencing significant financial pressures here, but it does do its utmost during its budget setting to put as much of those scarce resources as possible into schools and social care. Despite that, at the end of the third quarter, this variance of £5.1 million at year end, forecast at year end, that is a slight improvement in the position that we reported at the end of the second quarter. And it's a summary of that in table 2, paragraph 2 of the report. The position has naturally been a concern of healthy living and social care scrutiny as well, so it's worth mentioning that there's a working group through that scrutiny committee in operation too. The report then goes into detail on a service by service basis, starting with children and young people services, which is our major area of concern, and where the overriding pressures on external placements. There's a mix of volatility, complexity and costs there, so not a very straightforward position. There were pressures coming through here when we were setting the budget, but certainly not at this level, really difficult area to forecast. Adult services and Vale Alliance areas not significantly adrift at a headline level, but there is a £3 million forecast overspend on community care. And at the moment, that's being offset by staff vacancies, additional grant, regional integration fund monies, and deferred income. RMS is broadly in balance, which is good, but it's worth noting it does have less flexibility than some other areas, especially around our own care homes, where there's no ability to hold vacancies. And it's certainly an area that's experiencing pressure from the ongoing inflationary conditions that we still have in the economy. Looking forward to 2025-6, we've again been able to accommodate the vast majority of pressures requested, but we've got to be realistic. We've not been able to accommodate all of them, and the directorate will need to manage adult social care placements and provider fees in particular, which is going to be a challenge for colleagues. So that's all I was going to say by way of introduction, and happy to take questions. And obviously, number of colleagues from social services present to come in as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Matt. We've got 3 hands up already, so I'm going to just open the floor up to Councillor Franks first, if that's okay. Thank you, Councillor Franks.
Thank you very much. Glad Matt said that the figures and the department are quite complex, because I do struggle to sometimes understand the situation. What strikes me is that we're always told that the demands are very volatile. You never know at the start of the year or start of the week, maybe, what additional demands there are going to be on the department. They don't know what children are suddenly going to be found to be vulnerable, or adults, that type of thing. So I accept that there is this volatility, but the costs always seem to be in one direction. The volatility doesn't go in the other direction, and I find that intriguing. I also readily accept that there are a great deal of cost pressures. However, for how much longer can these cost pressures be sustainable? We all know that education and social services are taking a larger and larger percentage share of the council, especially social services. Sooner or later, they're going to be 80% of the authority with the current trend. How are we going to deal with that, and how does government expect us to deal with such huge demands? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Yes, so is there a long-term plan to maybe do something slightly differently to address these cost pressures? I know we are very reliant, aren't we, on external providers, and that comes at a massive cost. So I'm just wondering, have we ever thought about another way of doing this? I hate to say the word insourcing, because that in itself is an expensive project, but have we considered how we can, try and look to the future and do things differently? Thanks, Matt.
I was just going to respond on sort of a council level response to that. And what we are trying to do, and this follows up some of the work we've been doing in response to the Audit Wales Financial Sustainability Review, but a piece of work that we had in progress anyway. And what we don't want to be doing is setting a budget from one year to the next. We want a genuine rolling 5-year medium-term financial plan. And we've set out our aspirations for that in the budget report that went to council in March, and have been preceded by well-publicised work on the reshaping and transformation programme. So the overall approach is that we have a balanced rolling medium-term financial plan, and there'll be components of the reshaping and transformation programme contributing to that. Obviously, one major area within that will be service transformation, and that element of it, Lance and team will be obviously contributing to that piece of work. So that's the global level approach, but obviously there's very much a huge amount of work to be done by the service directors and their teams.
Thank you. Can I bring Lance in then, so that he can help us see the vision for the future? Thank you, thank you, Lance.
Thanks, Councillor Franks is spot on. It's incredibly complicated, and I think understanding demand patterns is similarly complicated. But there are some things we can predict. We know that the Vale of Glamorgan has a significant older population, and that older population is rising in number, particularly in the over 85-year-old group, which is typically when we may become involved with those individuals in terms of them needing care and support. There are all of the projections point to increasing numbers of older people, so it is only going in one direction. As Councillor Frank said, prices of things only ever seem to go up. I'm not aware of prices being reduced in any other environment either. So I think things do tend to only go in one direction, and that's probably an explanation of it. I think in terms of unpredictability and that volatility, that's also present across the client groups with social services, but can become particularly present in terms of budget implications with children. It doesn't take very many children who require a significant level of intervention for that to add a large cost, and that could be just one large family group, for instance. So it can be unpredictable, but there are elements of it that are predictable. I think in terms of funding for social care in the existing system and it not being sustainable, I think that's correct. I don't think the current system is sustainable. The position of funding for care has been considered by UK governments and Welsh governments for years. I think the first one I remember is Tony Blair, but that might show my age. But successive governments have looked at it, and successive governments have not implemented any significant change in terms of that. And so we remain in a system where councils are required to manage and fund it, and an inequitable system remains in place. We have, though, I suppose, on a more positive side, a number of transformational programs planned and already implemented over many years. We have ways, I suppose, of attempting to try and manage some of that demand. We also have moves within for children's services and a strategy from Welsh Government to remove profit. Profit is only a small element of our costs, but it is an element. And so that should, over a period of time, result in lower costs, albeit by not a huge margin. But the current feeling around that at the moment is that it brings about double running costs, setting up costs, and all of those things. So it's immediately more expensive, but hopefully less expensive in the longer term. I think our providers who we work really closely and genuinely really positively with, they have real genuine costs that are as a result of inflationary costs, whether that be power and light for care home buildings, food for residents, transport costs, and so on for visiting staff. So they are real costs that they have, and so and understandably you will see within the report elements of increases that really from a directorate process go almost straight out the door. We give them straight to those providers because in recognition of those growing costs. But I suppose principally what's happening is we are providing more care and more support to more people in the Vale than we ever have, and that is why it's costing more. What I can say in terms of, Matt referenced it earlier, that we have a budget programme board in social services. We've had that in place since 2012 when we overspent first. First in my tenure here anyway. And I think what we've managed to do through that budget programme board is really closely monitor our finance, really closely monitor the delivery of savings, and make sure that we are challenging ourselves suitably. And that, I think, has been very successful. The other part, I suppose, in terms of spend management, really has been about financial controls. So we have a lot of financial controls in the service. I think, there can be a worry, I suppose, that frontline managers may be too responsive in terms of releasing budget for and service in the light of an assessed need. So we have put in place significant budgetary controls to make sure that they are limited in terms of how far they can meet those controls without it requiring further escalation. Finally, I'm just going to end on one thing, because I'm conscious I've spoken for a while, but I think in some parts of the council there are potentially services that are discretionary and that we have a choice as to whether we provide. We don't have that choice in social services. If we have assessed it as being required, then we have a statutory responsibility to deliver it. And that creates an inherent challenge, I suppose, in terms of managing the budget. So we'll stop there, and my colleagues are here should anyone have further questions as well, want more detail.
Thank you, Lance. And you weren't talking for too long. You really weren't, because that's the purpose of this. We want to understand, and if it's possible that we can help as a critical friend, that's what we want to try and do. And if there are particular areas that you think could do with a little bit of, can I use that word, scrutiny, but not in a negative way, then that's why we're here. Councillor Carroll, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Lance, for the comments just now. From the 5.1% overspend, I'm right in saying that the majority of that was as a result of children's care placements. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The majority, I think it's in the table, the exact figure. But yes.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to check. The only reason why I do want to touch on adult services as well, but it seems to be that in the short term, that's where the particular cost pressure is coming from regarding that. So you talk about volatility. Are there any measures in place to make the council more resilient to that volatility?
I'll let Rachel come in as well, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
I think yes. I suppose the approval processes that I described are across the directorate. So we don't. They're different in terms of because of the nature of the business, but they are in place. But I suppose principally there are things that we are doing now, and there are things that are being planned, I suppose. But one of the main ones is about developing accommodation to deliver residential care for children. It's not a huge number of children who require that in the Vale of Glamorgan. It's about 20, but the costs are extremely high, and we are for each of those placements, and we are in the process of developing that accommodation and working with third sector organisations, so not-for-profit organisations, who will be delivering those services for us. And we've got some examples of where that's already started, but that remains very much a work in progress. Similarly, we are developing some accommodation to allow us to step up services when we need them for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. So we have requirements to take a number of those. They also add to that group, and we're also working in terms of trying to improve and increase the number of foster carers that we have available in the Vale. I suppose more looking forward, we're also looking at how we support mothers before they give birth, so that they have the skill and expertise and in order to I suppose help avoid the need for our services. So there's future developments planned around that as well. But I don't know whether my colleague Rachel wants to join in and add anything there.
Thank you. Just wondering at what point to come in. Thank you, Lance. It's a really interesting question. I think what you're asking us is how we protect against that volatility, and I think the response that Lance has given, which is really helpful, is about protecting against.
Sorry, Chair, I can't hear.
Can you not hear me? Can you see me?
I can see and hear you, but it's quite quiet.
I can see and hear you too,
Yeah,
Rachel.
We are getting your audio, Rachel. It's just you're very quiet at the moment.
Okay. I
Is your
apologise.
volume up on your?
It's all up. I'm I'm not very well. But so I think I'm probably hearing myself more loudly than I'm projecting. So I will try and project. Is that better? No? Yes?
It's still quiet. If you give all of us a chance as well, if everybody else could also turn up their audio, you in the audio settings on the left-hand side of your screen. If everybody's able to do that, then the audio from Rachel will hopefully be more audible for you. We can hear you, Rachel. It just seems to be a much lower level to our colleagues, so that's why we thought we better check.
Of course. Amy, is that any better now?
Yes.
That does seem louder for me, yes.
Great. Thank you. Stop me if that changes. Thank you. So Councillor Carroll and others. So the answer that I think that you've been given to the questions thus far is how do we guard against the consequences of that volatility? Yes, which is being more prepared for having more choice, having better value options available to us. I think what we've probably been less good at articulating and what we're working on at the moment is in providing the information that shows what we're doing to prevent the escalation.
Right.
So our admission into care has slowed. The work that we are doing to prevent children needing care, looking at alternatives to care, is significant. So I don't have those figures for you today because that's the work that we're doing at the moment to prepare particularly for that end of year position and illustration is. If we hadn't prevented that escalation for this group of children, what would that have cost? Because there is significant work going on across the division, which, for example, is preventing escalation into child protection or preventing escalation into care or stepping children down from those higher tariff interventions. So I think what's important for us to do is both illustrate to you that we are putting ourselves in a better position to deal with complexity and demand by having a range of services available that are more local, more affordable, and more flexible. But we are also doing a significant amount of work that, although it doesn't feel like it from what you're looking at, is reducing what the spend would be. So that cost avoidance.
Just to come back on that, it might be better for Lance to pick this up. In terms of developing your own accommodation, that's obviously going to be a medium to long-term thing. I mean, it's not something that you can just magic up like that. What's the progress like on that?
Of course. So before Welsh Government introduced their eliminate agenda, so the intention to eliminate profit from children's care, in the Vale of Glamorgan, we were already working with the third sector. So we were already specifically with Llanmai and Action for Children in terms of developing residential accommodation. In that time, we've had challenges such as COVID, and we have it's taken us longer to bring the developments that we're in train to fruition. But we currently have 2 homes, one with Llanmai and one with Action for Children, affording 6 local beds to Vale children. And we are developing 4 further beds with Llanmai for children again locally. So that will give us 10 beds. And bear in mind that our number of children in residential care at the most is double that. that's a pretty good position for us to be in.
Right, yeah.
It's also really important to recognise that it's not just a case of building 20 residential beds and saying all of those children can live in those beds, can live in those homes, because you will have children with different levels of need and specialism and complexity, where for some children, for example, there'll be children with disabilities, so they will need specialist provision. You might have children, for example, who display sexually harmful behaviour, and they will need specialist intervention themselves. So we will always have the need to commission some care for children. It will never be about, we've got 20 beds, we can provide them locally, just slot all those children in. So that's one of the additional complexities for us. But we are making good progress in relation to that residential development. Additionally, what Lance has referred to is the work that we're doing to develop accommodation for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. So the Home Office have mandated that local authorities across England and Wales will accept on a cycle basis, so an allocation basis, a number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. We have to accept those children, we have to receive those children, support them, and those children become looked after. So I think it's since that scheme has been in place, we've taken 36 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children into the Vale of Glamorgan. So, and what we are doing is developing local accommodation for those children. We currently place those children in Cardiff or in Swansea with an external provider. And what we want to do is develop our own accommodation. So there are two kind of key residential strands that we're involved in. And then additionally, what Lance has referred to is our efforts to increase our number of in-house foster carers in order to increase the number and the range of placements available to children on a fostering basis. But that challenge is bigger because those numbers of children in foster care and in independent fostering agency placements is much larger than the numbers in residential care.
So the unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, then, is that funded centrally by central government, or does that come off your budget?
So there is some level of funding, absolutely, for those children. So we will be awarded that funding when children come to us. But what I would say to you is it's important to remember that those children who are normally between 16 and 18 will still be the responsibility of the council beyond 18 because they will be care leavers. So the cost, that the money that we receive for those children will not be the entire amount of money that we would need to support those children. But yes, there is some money that comes from the Home Office in relation to that.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Excuse me, Councillor Carroll, you need to come through the chair when you ask questions. So if you wanted to ask a supplementary question, if you'd like to come through me, that will be absolutely fine. But you can't just keep having a single conversation with the speakers.
Okay, could I ask a supplementary, please, Chair?
One more question. Thank you.
Well, this is quite a complex issue. I do have a few other things to raise on this.
You may well do, but one more question, because we've got other people waiting. Thank you.
Well, is this a scrutiny committee, Chair?
Yes.
I would ask if this is a scrutiny committee. Right.
Can you ask your question? Thank you.
I will ask my final question, although I would like it placed on the record that this is a complex issue and I think it needs to be dealt with in depth. And I have many more questions than just one. And I don't think it's appropriate that the chair is limiting scrutiny on this issue. But in terms of the pressures that this is likely to cause in terms of adult care leavers, have any forecasts been done on that?
Not that I could provide to you off the top of my head, Councillor Carroll, but I think are you asking generally in relation to children who leave care, or are you asking specifically in relation to unaccompanied asylum-seeking children who leave care?
Yes, specifically in relation to that. And the reason I ask that question is because you've made the point that that is directly funded by central government at this stage, but that there will be an additional cost implication to the authority once they move on to that stage, if you like, as care leavers. And you've indicated that there's no additional funding available to account for that.
Yeah. So what's available is a set amount. So each local authority is afforded a set amount, and each child will have a level of complexity which may go beyond that. And certainly there's a consideration post 18. I mean, if committee wish for and chair agrees, we can certainly make some more information available to yourselves.
I'd be grateful if you could do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Hanks, please, if you'd like to ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say that the budget working group from the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee was very interesting, and it had some good outcomes. And I think it shows that task and finish work does work really well. And again, we're leading into what Councillor Carroll has just said. We can dig down a little bit further in this if scrutiny alters in the future. So I just wanted to make that statement. And I just wanted to ask the question about how many and how long have we had vacant posts in social care? And we also use agency social workers. I just wondered if you had a little bit of information regarding that, please.
We have at various times vacancies across different parts of the service, as you can imagine. I think in terms, I'll try and take the different parts and try and say roughly when it is. But 2 years ago and before, we had significant problems recruiting to our care workforce. So particularly around domiciliary care staff and with care home staff. That eased and is a much better position. But I suppose the profile of those workers has changed significantly. The vast majority now come from overseas. In terms of qualified social workers and occupational therapists who also work for us, this is less of an issue in terms of vacancies in adults. We will get the occasional vacancy when people leave, and we generally can fill them soon after. We also have sometimes we have grant money, and so we will use agency staff if we know that there's a limited time period. With children's services, children's social workers, that's been more difficult. We've had a number of vacancies for quite a while. They've been filled by agency social workers. And this is something we've been looking at because the Vale of Glamorgan is not on its own in that position. It's a problem across the UK, actually. It's not just Wales. And a number of, I suppose, initiatives have been started. A number of things have happened on a local basis in terms of trying to become and ensure we're an attractive employer and that we're paying competitively and so on. And I think what we've seen is a healthy reduction in agency social workers in children's services with more permanent social work appointments having been made. That said, we're not finished, and more work needs to be done to encourage people into the profession and into those posts specifically. One of the ways we've done that locally is we have really increased the number of people that we're putting onto social work courses ourselves and who we're funding through that. So if I go back 4 or 5 years ago, we had a handful of social care officers. We now have, I'll probably get this wrong and Rachel will correct me, but probably 15 to 20 social care officers in children's services. We're putting significant numbers of them onto the social work course. We had 5 qualify and finish, I'm going to say November, but it's not very long ago. We haven't got any coming off this next year, but we are hoping that we'll have something like 14 the following year. And I think at that point we'll be in a very, very different situation. So So yeah, really difficult position, but I'm really pleased with the progress we've made and the plans that we've put in place to try and sort that out.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you. We have another hand up from Councillor Lovelock Edwards. Do you want to ask your question, please? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, team, for the report and obviously the contribution so far. And I just want to echo what Councillor Hanks has said about as we change the formation and the scrutiny process, then our ability to sort of be that critical friend is going to hopefully improve. But in the meantime, I assume, Chair, that like any other colleague on this committee, that anyone with questions can easily access the officers over this complex case and don't need to wait until scrutiny takes place to ask the questions, which leads me on to the education report that's mentioned. And whilst I acknowledge that it's a comprehensive report that has been put to some members, it would be helpful for this committee if we were to have that report presented to us, because clearly, like adult and social care and children's services, education is a complex topic that has seen significant changes in terms of not just from the financial element or the budgetary element, but in how education is shaping in Wales. So I think that would be useful. Perhaps I'm being selfish here, and I don't want to put additional work on officers, but that would be useful for me. It was interesting as well to learn about the costs and developing Councillor Hank's question around agency. Again, linking to education, where a number of authorities have looked at sort of the cost of agency workers and value for money in using organisations that supply the labour. Are there any plans in place to work in collaboration or partnership with other authorities who face similar challenges within this sector on perhaps looking at some sort of in-house agency work that would ensure that we can control not just costs, but the calibre and the training and the quality of the individual that we are utilising, and also prevent the two-tier workforce that tends to take shape, considering that recruitment seems to still be a problem. And I also wanted to ask in terms of the causal links to the volatility and understanding looking at the fact that you're now looking at a financial plan and a transformational plan. I assume that both are not going to be looked in isolation, but there'll be some clear linkage, because what I think everyone here needs to know is, irrespective of the costs, are we sort of being as effective as we possibly can to sort of give support and to, sort of future-proof the service, because we have a lot of sort of issues or complex matters that we know are coming and will always sort of, we're all getting older, for example. So there's a lot that we can plan for, but are we actually planning fit for purpose for future generations, or are we just firefighting at this moment in time? And if so, how is that how is the transformational sort of proposals going to make us more effective and add value? Thank you.
Chair, I assume you're happy for me to come in. I think the agency piece is really interesting. There's a couple of things. We're part of the council's contract for agency staff, for our care staff, for our care homes, and so I think that's probably widely understood. The bit that you probably aren't aware of is particularly around the children's agency social workers, is that as part of the Association of Directors of Social Services in Wales, we have developed a pledge which is signed up to and agreed by all 22 local authorities, as a way of trying to stop the, I suppose, growth in agency dependency across Wales, and also as an attempt to manage the costs. And I referred earlier to the fact that that we were improving in terms of our permanent recruitment and reductions in agency social workers in that area. And I believe that pledge is a significant part of it. In the first week of the pledge, actually I think it was a week before, but we decided it would be unfair to not honour it. We were approached by somebody who wanted to work for us as an agency social worker, and yet they currently worked in a neighbouring local authority for that local authority. And so we declined. That's part of the pledge in order to stop people leaving the statutory sector to become agency workers. For some people, agency work is exactly the right thing, and so we don't want to stop it entirely, but we have the pledge that also endeavours to manage the cost of how much we pay and to put some caps on that. So I think some really good progress. We are in discussions. In fact, the plan for ADSS Cymru now is to roll that out to adults, and I think with potential future, if there was further funding, then we could look at doing something different on an all Wales basis. Your other question was really difficult to answer because it's really far-reaching. I think I've said it before that the funding model as it stands for social care isn't fit for purpose, and we are likely to end up, given our demography, with significant challenges. There are different arrangements in place in England where people are pushed to support their own, are enabled to make their own care arrangements, and therefore don't require the support of the council, particularly if they're well off and can afford to do so. In Wales, that is not what happens, because people come to us because they know that there is a cap on the amount that they pay. So there are some significant differences between the Welsh and the English model that probably makes it really difficult for us to actually do it, make a big strategic difference in terms of how we might generate income or manage demand. So some real limitations, I suppose, and that to me makes it even more important that the funding for care is sorted properly. So I repeat this everywhere I go at the moment, because it's happening across, what you see in our budget at the moment is happening across Wales. Significant overspends, predominantly in children's services, and continued overspends around supporting more and more people to live at home.
Thank you, Lance. Does anybody else want to ask any further questions now of our officers? No? Okay, that's fantastic. Well, we've got two recommendations that have come from this today. One was that committee want to have a report, as we asked, for the education overspend, in the same way that we've been discussing the work that's ongoing in social services to try and address some of these cost pressures. So we would like to have that report, if that's okay, for officers to come here. We appreciate that there was a briefing, but not everybody was able to make it. And part of what we're trying to do with our scrutiny process is to be transparent, so that we can have these discussions and for members of the public to also hear what we are talking about today. So we definitely would like to have that report if it can come to the next committee. And Councillor Carroll also would like to have an additional report. Rachel said, I think, that she could do this. And that was to do with the unaccompanied children asylum seeker care leavers. Was it just that, or did you want to see the cost pressures for care leavers in general, Councillor Carroll. Do you want to come back in and confirm exactly what report that you were after, please?
I mean, I'd be grateful for a breakdown of both, to be honest with you, Chair, and thank you for bringing me back in. Basically, in terms of the care leavers more generally, I think that the forecast for what that cost will be helpful. The reason I asked the specific point about unaccompanied asylum-seeking children was because Rachel alluded to the fact that while grant funding is available from central government for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children when they're at that stage, when they become care leavers, that funding isn't removed, which isn't available, which will then create an additional cost pressure. And that was the reason why I thought that some forecasting on future costs may be in order, particularly since it could be helpful in terms of making advance representations to central government on the need to uplift our budgets in light of that.
Yeah. Thank you. I've got 3 hands up now from Matt, Lance and Rachel. So Matt, do you want to come back in, please? Thank you. You're on mute, sorry. I think you're still on mute. I'm really sorry. We can't hear you. Lance, do you want to come in then? Oh, Amy's here.
I was just going to say, I believe Matt is going to, because I've learned to lip read now, Chair. I think Matt is going to, I think Matt is going to leave the meeting and rejoin us. But obviously, I know you've got Lance on screen as well.
Thank you. Go on, Lance.
I just want to clarify whether it was a report that's required for this committee, because I'm conscious that question really relates to the Healthy Living and Social Care Committee. Obviously, if Councillor Carroll wants some financial details, and I think we would obviously be happy to share those and send them over. Yeah. That's not a problem. But I'm just wary of reporting twice, I suppose.
No. And that's absolutely, that's perfectly acceptable. Yeah, if he can have the information that he's asked for, that would be great. Thank you. Rachel, please come back in.
Thank you. I think I heard the question as being information about the difference between what the Home Office give us and the cost of looking after those children, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. If the ask is more around projections generally for children for care leavers, I think that's something different. So and again, it's Lance's observation, isn't it? It's about where that information goes.
Yeah.
But I think the question that I heard was to understand the difference between what the Home Office provide and what it costs. Is that right?
I believe that's what Councillor Carroll was asking you for, yes.
Yeah. And to make that available to this committee or
to Councillor Carroll, but you can also CC in, the rest of the committee. Thank you, Rachel. Matt, are you back? Maybe not. We can see you.
Can't turn it. I can't get my audio settings back on.
We can see you and hear you.
Can I Teams message you, Amy?
Yeah, Matt, can you hear us? Because you are audible and visual right now. I think Matthew's got an issue with hearing us now, Chair. Do you?
I can't hear anybody now.
Oh dear.
Would you mind just taking a momentary pause, Chair, and I'll try to contact Matt? Okay.
No problem.
Hiya. Yeah.
Hello,
Hi.
Matt. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, Chair, we're back operational.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Lance has got his hand up. No, he hasn't now. That's great. No, he has got his hand up. Go on, Lance.
Sorry, I was just hoping that myself and my colleagues could be excused. It's just we have an awards or celebration evening for care staff across the Vale of Glamorgan this evening, and I'm missing it, and I would like to get there if that's at all possible.
Absolutely. And congratulations, Lance. And thank you so much for coming along tonight. Yeah, we look forward to the education report, but that won't be you, thankfully, will it? So yes, thank you for coming and being with us tonight. Okay then. So Matt, did you want to come in quickly before?
Yeah, I've just noticed on the education report. In the meantime, shall I just speak to Trevor Baker and ask if he at least circulates the slides that he presented in that meeting in January to the members of this committee? So
that would be great. But if we,
starters.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Okay then. So little bit of an intermission there, but we're back online, and we're going to move to the next item. So basically our asks were for that additional information report for Councillor Carroll, and that we get the report from education, and that was it for that one. So can I have a hand now to move to the next agenda item, please? Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Next agenda item then is reference from Cabinet on the 6th of March. This is Q3 revenue monitoring for 2024-25. So Matt, do you want to just take us through this report, please?
Just a brief intro to this as well. So this is the third quarter monitoring report. So this takes us up to the end of December, so the first 3 quarters of the year, and forecasting the year end position. The report summarises the overall position, and then there's quite a significant amount of detail also set out in appendices 1 to 8 of the report. We feel that we can do a little bit more to improve the accessibility of this report, and with my operational manager accountancy, we're having a look at the layout of the main report and trying to make it a bit more transparent and easy to follow. I guess on the numbers though, the unplanned use of reserves are reported as a drawdown of £12.7 million, so quite a significant sum of money still, and that represents continued pressures across services, particularly school budgets, which we've just mentioned. There's also additional pressures in school transport, which reflect some of the market supply issues. And there's also increased demand for ALN. And then, of course, there's the growth in pressure that we have in children and young people services. And again, as discussed, that's demand, complexity, and the need for some of these pressures to be mitigated by action across the service, and long term, looking at the local residential provision that Rachel Evans has just talked about. Generally, though, there's been an improvement in the position across the other council services, and that's been largely due to additional income and grant income in the year, including pay grant funding allocated corporately and to schools, and that's also as well as holding vacancies within teams as well. There is also some additional surplus recognised in respect of council tax and external borrowing costs, and certainly on council tax, this is also a difficult one to forecast. The bulk of the upside really has been the continued success in recovering historical arrears, but certainly some challenges continuing in the in-year recovery. So that improved corporate position has been used to increase the amount of reserve set aside to offset the school deficits by a further £2 million to an allocation of £4 million, which provides a prudent level of funding for the expected outturn position for schools at the 31st of March. That's still in this report forecast to being greater than that, but we are seeing it easing back, and I'd expect by the time we get to the outturn report, which will come to you which will come to Cabinet in late June, July, that would have reduced still further. We do have, as we've had the past couple of years, really challenging savings efficiencies targets, £7.7 million of corporate savings. Progress is being made against those targets, and that's reflected in the appendices. About 77% of savings for 24/5 have been achieved, and 74% of the outstanding 24/5 and 23/4 savings achieved. So there has been a continued focus on those historical savings as well. The analysis of reserves now reflects planned drawdowns for revenue and capital schemes, as well as the unplanned use of reserves, and that would give us year-end balances of £53.4 million. So that's all I was going to say by way of introduction. Excuse me. And as ever, more than happy to take any questions that colleagues have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for that quick overview. Do we have questions then from committee members, please, on this report? Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Please come in.
Apologies. Can you hear me? I've just had an issue with my device.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt, for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. First of all, regarding the school's budget deficit of 5.9 million, report cites retirement and redundancy costs in schools as being a contributing factor towards this. Would you be able to provide a rough estimate of how significant a factor that would be?
So efficiency-based redundancy in schools, that's a cost that we will pick up in the pay pressures reserve. We've needed to convene the redundancy panel only on a couple of occasions during the last financial year. Without having hard evidence in front of me, what's basically been happening is schools in managing their positions when posts have become vacant have probably not been recruiting to them. So there's been a very low level incidence of redundancy in school-based posts in the current financial year.
Okay, thank you. And sorry?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's and secondly, these are the school transport overspend. Again, it highlights I think it was 121 additional pupils using mainstream school transport and 50 additional ALN pupils. In terms of the overspend and the impacts, would that mostly be coming from the additional pupils using mainstream transport or from the use of, I'm presuming, taxis for ALN pupils?
Yeah, I would, again, I don't have the full detail in front of me, so I'm partly speculating, but I do know the transfer of pupils with ALN is very frequently or often by taxi, so proportionally more expensive. So whilst that's 121 mainstream compared to 50 ALN,
yeah.
I would imagine that the ALN ones are the majority of the additional cost.
And the 121 additional, apologies, Chair, may I ask one final question on this?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and with regard to the 121 additional pupils, is there any particular reason why we've seen that increase, or was it just natural increase in terms of the pupil numbers rising?
I don't have the detail in front of me, but I can certainly ask the relevant team to provide a little bit more information on that for you.
No, the reason I was going to ask is I was just curious as to whether it had been pupils moving from the private to the state sector. I don't know if the authority would have anything that could demonstrate that, but if there was anything, I'd be interested to see it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. And I think that when we have our report on the overspend from education, as home to school transport is one of their big cost pressures, we can talk about that more then, can't we? And Matt, you can try and get some more information for us, or maybe we'll have Kyle here. That would be really good if he could make it.
Yeah,
I know how difficult it is to continually provide. It's a shallow pool of operators out there, and as Matt has already highlighted, ALM provision is quite expensive in the fact that it needs to be taxis and sometimes adapted vehicles as well, which there are few out there. So yeah, it's one of those cost pressures. And I understand that the service are looking at how they can do things differently. So they may have things to tell us when we meet with them. So that would be really good. Do we have any other questions for Matt then, please? No? I just want to quickly ask, and it's really good to see, Matt, that that there are work streams in place to progress the unplanned use of reserves. That's really positive. Hopefully we'll get the school's budget task force or somebody from that to the meeting when we talk about the education overspend. That would be really helpful. And I know that we are looking at spend controls. I think it would be really helpful if you could tell us a little bit more about what we're doing to have tighter spend controls within these work streams that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think the headline work that we're doing, certainly through senior leadership team and the directors, is a real focus on everything that we spend. We actually need to spend that. So anything that at all discretionary, there's a huge amount of scrutiny on. Colleagues are obviously, I mean, we've had a little bit of discussion about this earlier this evening, holding on to vacancies wherever possible. And since the autumn, recruitment to all posts has been put in front of SLT on a weekly basis. And obviously, staffing is a key driver of the total costs of the council, so that's an appropriate area of focus for us. So those are the key interventions. But obviously, we know that the work Lance and team are doing in terms of their budget programme board, the work that Trevor Baker's doing with the schools. So there are quite a number of streams of work trying to keep the council's expenditure under control.
Thank you. Okay, so do we not have any other questions? If not, that's absolutely fine. Okay, right then. So that report was provided for consideration, which I think we've just done. So if we can have a hand to move, please. Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Thank you. So we'll move then on to agenda item 6, please. That's another reference from Cabinet, but this is Q3 capital monitoring 24-25. So still with you, Matt?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So again, this covers the period, first 3 months of the year. I guess worth mentioning, and should have done for the other one as well, these have perhaps come to Cabinet a little bit later than they would have in previous years, and hence a little bit later here as well. What we have striven to do when we've been presenting the budget to council is that we have the most up-to-date monitoring running alongside it to inform the overall decision making. So this report a little bit later than we've seen coming forward in previous years. At the time of writing, it seems quite a while ago we're putting this together now. The approved programme was at £89.933 million, so just very short of £90 million. That included a number of schemes slipped from 23-4 into 24-5, £15 million. If all of the requests within the report to amend the programme are approved, the revised forecast outturn projected at £80 million. And it's worth noting that the spend to the end of December is £39 million. So still quite a significant expectation of schemes coming to a conclusion in the fourth and final quarter of the year. Again, Appendix 1 details the financial progress on the capital programme on a scheme-by-scheme basis. And Appendix 2 is some of the audit trail. So that sets out by directorate the changes from the approved budget that was set back in March 2024, and movements in year, including slippages, additions. So a real clear trail of how the programme's evolved over the past 9 months. Worth highlighting, and the revenue and the social care discussion just now, we talked about the economic environment that we're operating with, and it's certainly a case here that many areas are still continuing to experience increases in costs when they're looking to deliver their schemes. Tenders are continually being received over the current allocated budgets, and officers are reporting the requirement to renegotiate submitted tenders. And you'll have seen from the various emergency powers that we're reporting this report, there's also a need to move resources around the capital programme to be able to accommodate that. Schemes are being monitored really closely throughout the year. And as you see in the report, this time round, slippage of 8.696 being requested and fed into the monitoring. Needless to say, officers continue to work with project managers and sponsors to ensure value for money and making sure that all funding opportunities are identified and fully explored. The report, decent, as I've just mentioned, actually details the delegated authority requests that have been approved and also notes the use of emergency powers, which are detailed in Appendix 1 to the report. We've highlighted a couple of schemes in the report, which we normally bring a couple to attention. And firstly, there's the early years grant programme, where small grants have been delivered totaling 470k to childcare providers in the Vale, with several major capital works for Bumblebees, Fly and Start, and Dinas Powys and Cadoxton. And secondly, Welsh Government Brilliant Basics grant funding has been received, and that's enabled us to deliver toilets refurbishment schemes at 3 coastal sites in Llantylt Major, Ogmore and Southern Down. The report also makes several amendments to the current capital programme, and some of these are a little bit larger than normal, so worth drawing to attention. There's the carry forward of the £1.5 million of the vehicle replacement programme into 25/6 capital programme. This carry forward of monies just short of £5 million into the housing improvement programme, so that was forward into 2025/6. There's also some reprofiling of the city deal in the 24/5 and future years capital programme, so just drawing those to attention as well. So that's all I can say by way of introduction, and again, naturally, happy to take any questions that the colleagues have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Goodjohn, do you want to come in first? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Just very short and quick. The vehicle improvement programme, can we get some information as to when those vehicles are going to be delivered? You can't answer that today, I'm sure, but if the committee can get some information, that'd be great. And can we make sure that the cabinet report is amended, because at the moment they're saying that they're going to carry forward £1,500 when it should be £1.5 million. Okay, yeah. That's all from me.
We'll do that, and at the moment those words left my mouth, I was anticipating that question, and I could have come pre-prepared for that, to be honest, but I'll go and ask the question, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, there's just so big delays with vehicle deliveries, I know. Yeah. Can I ask as well? I mean, I know that this committee recommended a little while ago that we consider, when it comes to our procurement exercises, publishing our capped budget and saying that that's the maximum, and we can't accept bids that exceed our budget, as one of the things that you could try to address the overspends and the bids coming in that are over budget and then having to renegotiate. It's worth a go. I said this before, but I really think it's something you should just consider trying as one thing to try and control the costs. You may find it's really effective.
I will. Apologies, I've not picked that up as yet, but I will talk to procurement colleague and the team about exploring that. And apologies, I haven't done so today.
No, it's fine. It was a recommendation that went back to cabinet, and I know that they passed that back to you to have a look into. So yeah. But it is feasible, and it will, and I'm sure it's a measure that will definitely help if you just give it a go. Anyone else then that would like to ask a question of this particular agenda item? No? Okay, that's fine. Thank you. If we can have a hand to move then, please. Thanks, Councillor Goodjohn. Yes, that was a report for noting as well, just to make it absolutely clear. Thank you. So if we move then on to agenda item 7, this is reshaping scrutiny. This is a reference that's come from Cabinet on the 6th of March 2025. It is a topic that most members have had a number of opportunities to contribute, and it's now coming through the Scrutiny Committee's route as well. So I think we've got James with us today, I think, to give us a... Yes, here he is. Thank you, James.
Evening, members. Yeah, absolutely. So, as Councillor Prover just alluded to, I know members are aware of this work already through various briefings, and I appreciate some of you are also members of other committees such as Governance and Audit Committee and Democratic Services Committee, who have also received this item in the last week. I'm not going to run through the report in verbatim detail and largely take it as read, but just give a really quick overview of why we're proposing the changes to scrutiny arrangements, what they could look like in terms of design and ways of working, including the potential benefits. I really want to emphasise it's still very much in the design phase, with lots of ongoing dialogue being fed in to support the design of any future arrangements. So the comments and feedback today are very much being welcomed and actively sought as we try and really shape what this could look like for the future. Considering the role of this committee in particular, I'd really welcome viewpoints with particular reflection upon the impact this has on potential policy design, with particular reflection upon the corporate plan and the opportunities presented by the investigative task and finish scrutiny. The proposed changes to the Council's approach to performance monitoring arrangements, and as this will impact upon the monitoring cycle, of which this committee is currently heavily involved. The opportunity to further scrutinise the use of resources in an integrated manner, considering performance, finance and other information in a collective forum in an integrated manner. So firstly, I'm just going to cover off the why we're looking to change briefly and draw upon a range of drivers. I'm not going to labour these points or go into too much exhaustive detail of them, as many members will be aware, but currently it seems a perfect storm of drivers in terms of looking to change. So the last review of scrutiny arrangements was in 2016, and I'm sure all members of the committee will appreciate we're in a very different world to where we were just under 10 years ago. So we've received resident feedback as part of Let's Talk of Life in the Vale survey surrounding their ability to participate in decision making. Elected members have fed back as part of the annual scrutiny impact survey around the lack of effectiveness of the scrutiny function. The recent performance panel assessment, which was shared with this committee, identified this as a formal recommendation. There have been a series of Audit Wales recommendations related to the effectiveness of scrutiny, both considering the service user perspective recent reports and also financial sustainability. And also, there's been developments in good practice and scrutiny from other Welsh councils and beyond in the last decade. That it really is an opportunity to look at how we do things differently. And then finally, the council has recently approved its new corporate plan, Vale 2030. So it seems an opportune moment with all those drivers in terms of actually let's review the existing arrangements and really challenge ourselves in terms of how do we deliver the best scrutiny for the people of the Vale. So I'm just going to provide a really brief overview of the proposals. It's a summary. I'm in no particular order. The detail is within the report, but I'm again going to emphasise they are still very much in the proposal stage, and the intention is for members not to lose information. It isn't about taking away the opportunity to get involved and shape policy. It will provide challenge. This is just really considering what's the right place and the right channel to receive that information, and distill really what we believe scrutiny is to be in the Vale of Glamorgan to add the most possible value. So in terms of considerations, we'd be looking to remove information only and noting type items from agendas, which take up a considerable amount of time, as noted within the report's analysis. So whilst members would still receive this information via member briefings or for publication, etc., it's just to really release them from the formal scrutiny space, because they are currently taking up a considerable amount of time. And realistically, there's no recommendations coming forth with them. They're purely for information and noting. But on that point, it's important to note that obviously members do still have the calling process available to them if they do need to, if they do feel that actually the topic would benefit from further scrutiny. And currently we started working with officers just to consider beforehand what value they anticipate from scrutiny and just to improve the quality of the recommendations being made. So working with colleagues from the organisational development department, how we best systematically roll this out with it being a brief explanation being provided today to the chief officers at a part of a briefing session, but this will be an ongoing dialogue. We're looking to align the scrutiny function to the corporate plan and very much focus on outcomes. So looking to change from the existing 5 committees to 4 committees, currently based upon the remits of Start Well, Live Well, Place and Resources. There are potential identified remits within the report, but on that element, there's not an expectation for all areas to receive coverage by committee on an annual basis. And secondly, the focus should very much be upon the outcomes. For example, in terms of the Start Well committee considering what actually resonates in terms of best start in life. It is, again, to emphasise, it is still very much in the proposal phase, so that isn't firmly locked in terms of there will be 4. So not at this stage able to say there will be 4 committees moving forward. This is still being up for deliberation and feedback from yourselves as members. Looking to introduce systematic task and finish investigative scrutiny. So looking to, on a 12-week basis per committee, very much allow scrutiny committees to identify their own areas of interest and increasingly shape the policy direction agenda of the council by making proactive recommendations, by really digging into topics and gathering information, using expert witnesses, residents through their lived experiences, the wider community groups, etc. We do have this option currently available, but I'll be candid, it's undertaken inconsistently currently, and it's inequitable across current committees because my team don't have the capacity to resolve and to support this regularly based on the current ways of working within the scrutiny function. I appreciate task and finish is a big commitment to members in terms of time, effort and energy. As anticipated, there'll be generally around 6 to 8 members of each of these groups. So any additional workload of this will not be consistently felt by all members. And ultimately, involvement is at their discretion, but we will be looking to undertake an exercise with members surrounding their skills and experiences to really try and identify and harness the talent that we have within that chamber to really maximise the value of and really shape proactive policy design. And then we're looking to change the frequency of scrutiny meetings from monthly to bi-monthly meetings. So currently they're held on a monthly basis. So we're looking to change this to every other month. So in terms of this, there are 2 main reasons for this change being proposed. So the removal of information only and note and tied items will lead to a considerable number of items being removed from agendas and shared with members by alternative mediums. To be clear, there's no intention to try and shoehorn 2 months worth of meetings as is, based on the current agendas, to a singular agenda with an elongated meeting. It would still be an expectation that meetings would generally be 4 to 5 items, absolute maximum, and very much short, sharp and focused in terms of really focusing on where scrutiny could add value. And then and the second reason is in order to facilitate our task and finish work, as I just mentioned, we need to release capacity within the Democratic Services team, who are limited to currently service this function with the current budget situation, as I'm sure you'll all appreciate. There's no sign of any immediate increased resources on the horizon. The current arrangements place them in a cycle of continuously administering meetings, whereas changing to 2 monthly presents an opportunity to allow them to really add value in this space. This was a key requirement of the Local Government Election Act 2021, which we played around with the fringes there, but actually it's a real chance to bring it to life and to almost become a leading council in Wales in terms of this kind of function. And then finally, looking at the performance arrangements, they're also currently being reviewed, as currently each performance and finance reports are presented to each committee on a quarterly basis. And as this committee will be aware, there's been consistent feedback from members on officers surrounding the value of these arrangements and the quality of recommendations being made versus the time commitment from everyone involved. So this is very much proposing to bring members from all committees on a twice-year basis to discuss the corporate plan performance holistically due to its integrated nature, whilst also encouraging some cross-committee learning and hopefully richer recommendations. This is still very much in its design phase. There's no concrete details as to what this will look like yet. It's very much in its conceptual design, but it is undertaken elsewhere within the local government families in Wales, and it has reaps and benefits. it's important to note on that front that financial monitoring would still be shared with the resources committee on a regular the proposed resources committee on a regular basis. In terms of the next steps, this is very much just at this proposal stage, and any comments or questions today are welcomed. We'll be looking to formulate a proposal to be agreed at full council at the end of April with a view to appoint members at the May annual meeting. And just for a little bit of wider assurance, any implementation is looking to be monitored through both the looking at our recommendation tracking, so to try and really tell the story of scrutiny in terms of actually we've recommended this, and then for it to come back to yourselves in terms of was it accepted, was it rejected, was it partially accepted, what's been the longer term story of any recommendations that have been made, alongside also undertaking an internal audit review of the programme for post-implementation, just to ensure that we capture any lessons learned, anything that's what's worked, what hasn't worked, etc. Just as this will be realistically, it will be an evolving beast as and when this is implemented in the next 12 to 18 months. So I'm hoping that's given a brief overview of the changes, and yeah, I'm very happy to take any comments or questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, James, for that summary of the changes that have been proposed. It makes a lot of sense to me to align our scrutiny committees with the new corporate plan and the way that we want to work going forward. That makes absolute sense. And I'm really happy that we will not spend an awful lot of time, as we have done, debating reports that are for noting only. I think that will help committee members focus minds on the task in hand of being useful and coming up with recommendations and proposals. And I also think it's really helpful that recommendations made, there'll be a path back from Cabinet. So committee members will know what's happened with that recommendation, if it could have been accepted or partially accepted, and the reasons why, because that's also quite helpful. So yeah, I think that's reasonable and positive, all of those things. I know that this isn't the only thing that you're working on, and you have touched in the report about other improvement work that's being considered to support scrutiny. I'm just wondering if there's anything more that you'd like to share with us tonight on that piece of work. But thanks, James.
Thank you, Chair, for those comments. Yeah, so whilst the report largely sets out the structural and ways of working elements, in terms of wider work surrounding scrutiny, probably didn't allude to as much as probably could have in that overview. We are looking at training from a dual lens, essentially. Firstly, in terms of elected members, so we have commissioned WLGA. We are working with them to co-design some training for chairs and vice chairs following the AGM, just to really actually support them through the changes as well, in terms of actually how do you manage the meeting, how do you get to those really meaningful, meaty recommendations that could make an impact, etc. So there is that as part of the member development program that will be upcoming, and that member development program is being refreshed in light of these proposed changes as well. And then in terms of officers, we'll be working with our colleagues in organisational development, very much around actually how do we change the officer approach to scrutiny as well, in terms of actually making it really getting officers to understand you're not just feeding a constant cycle of reports for noting, and how do you actually distill as much value as they can in terms of their ways of working from the scrutiny process. So we are exploring those. And then following that, whilst it's not outlined within the report, it's probably as a longer term aspiration for structural implementation. It's very much looking into that public participation arena in terms of the council as a public participation strategy. And it's very much how do we get more residents involved in our democratic functions, particularly through the task and finish group, to share their lived experience and their viewpoints. So, for example, whilst we co-op members currently, and naturally, youth have been conversations with youth services surrounding co-option onto the Startwell committee, which seems a natural fit. Actually, in terms of that task and finish group, how do we really maximise that residents' voice in a proportionate way, naturally, to make sure it's representative of the as representative as can be of the population, but very much how do we try and really bring in as many people as we can to really understand and just start shaping the work, shaping the policy direction as much as possible, so that actually the apparent democratic deficit and people's wider perception of their ability to get involved in local democracy should hopefully change. So that's a brief overview of some of the other elements as well. Apologies, they don't come out as heavily as in the report. This is very much focused on the structural and ways of working. But I will probably note this isn't this one. If any changes are made to the scrutiny function following council in April, this won't be the last conversation surrounding the improvement surge of scrutiny. This is probably very much looking at structural ways of working, and then there will be longer term considerations for actually improving that function as well moving forward as we look to embed these changes.
That's brilliant. Thank you, James. And it's really good to hear the additional work and exciting to see the different ways that we can involve residents in this process too. Councillor Goodjohn, you've got your hand up. Please come in.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I want to point everyone to comments made at governance and audit as well. I think at the end of the day, there's quite a bit of work that's been put into this, which is thoughtful, very positive. There's two things this is mostly about. Firstly, it's about taking power from cabinet and putting it into the hands of backbenchers, opposition and administration. I think this is extremely positive to see. Task and finish groups have been an extremely effective way of making policy in past administrations, as we've seen from recommendations on social care, as we mentioned previously, housing, and even in this one with procurement. I think it's going to be an extremely positive step forward that we had that task and finish group. And working that into the very way that we do scrutiny is extremely important, and it puts direct policy making power into the hands of regular members of the council and into residents' hands, because they can be part of those task and finish groups. We can make sure that everyone is involved. Policy experts are involved outside of our current civil service. It's extremely positive to see. Secondly, make no mistake, this is not about getting councillors to do less work. Task and finish groups, the whole idea is that we don't get to just sit here and criticise. The whole idea is, on top of that, absolutely we're here to be a critical friend, but on top of that, we're here to make actual recommendations, to make actual policy proposals. I think that's going to be extremely positive. I know the work of task and finish groups have been extremely vital in other councils, such as James will be aware in Powys Council. It's been extremely positive. And also, if we can link that into, as the chair has mentioned before, the work of citizens' assemblies as well, I think would be an extremely positive step forward. So I think there are still problems. I would again point to governance and audit. I think Cabinet should review the proposed scrutiny committees. I don't know if there is a fair balance of workload between them. I'm still unconvinced on this issue. I'm really concerned about Startwell, for example, having children's social services and schools, which are, I mean, it's basically all of our overspend this year, and it's not going to change significantly if we continue with the current policy of budgeting that social care and schools are, of course, prioritised at all stages of the budgeting process. That's only going to grow, and also that it's over half of the council's budget. So I'm concerned about that. Plays as well, has an extremely large portfolio. So of course, it's not perfect, but on the whole, this is about devolution of power away from cabinet, and I think that's an extremely positive thing to see overall, and it should make scrutiny far better in the long run.
Thanks, Councillor Goodjohn. Councillor Wood, please come in with your comments.
We went through this at depth in the main council meeting, and there have been various recommendations back and forth. I await the firm proposals. We've just had a half an hour speech about how wonderful this will be and the benefits we will have. And part of what we were talking about in the whole discussion of some of these meetings is the length of some of the presentations. So I look forward to the hard and firm proposals that we can actually scrutinise. It may work out better. Let's see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. And the devil is in the detail, isn't it, as they say. Councillor Franks, please come back in.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I always struggle to understand these changes. I don't always initially grasp the implications. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's, as you just said, the devil's in the detail. But what I will be hoping to see is that any changes will ensure that members can more easily place an item on the agenda. There needs to be far more enthusiasm from the authority to have contributions from members in that respect, and there needs to be more officer backup to support such bids. Will these proposals mean that the excessively long reports will be a thing of the past? I think the record is over 400 pages for one report, which was an outrageous waste of officer time, and from what I could see, just designed to bamboozle backbench councillors. It certainly wasn't good scrutiny. And will these changes also ensure that at every scrutiny meeting there will be a relevant cabinet member in attendance? Now, I don't know. I'm looking down the list. I can't see a cabinet member present today. Perhaps someone will correct me. But this is, we're talking about important matters. We're talking about a lot of money, but I haven't heard one cabinet member speak. Nothing from social services, nothing from education, nothing really. Well, no comment, no engagement from the cabinet. Will these changes ensure that those 3 points I've just made will be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. I think we do have a cabinet member with us tonight. Just to correct you, I'm sorry, Councillor Gwyn John is here, so it isn't that there's no cabinet member here.
My apologies.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry, Gwyn. I never want to badmouth you. We go back too many years. So thank you, Chair.
No, that's fine. Just so you know that he is here. He is here. Yeah. Thank you. James, do you want to come in on some of those points that Councillor Franks has made? I think the question of officer backup and having more support, not more support, but more of you in democratic services to help us with research and things, that was brought up in governance and audit, wasn't it too? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the first question, and particularly related to task and finish, we're hoping that actually by changing by reducing the overall meeting cycle, that'll release capacity within the democratic services team to be able to help facilitate supporting members with some of that task and finish work. So whether that be supporting with research, helping draft reports, in terms of shaping proposals, etc. So that's the specifics for task and finish. But then just in general, obviously members do have the opportunity to add items to agendas as they see fit, which is agreement with a process currently in place. But equally, we are looking to try and get want to, at the start of the municipal year, once committees are hopefully appointed to, and very much have a planning session with committees in terms of actually what are the areas that you think you would like to look at as a committee proactively this year, so we can really forward work program out as much as possible to ensure that resources are lined up in terms of officer capability and capacity. They're lined up to be able to support that in as a timely and effective manner as possible. Whilst I appreciate there are some elements that do completely let curveballs, the intention is very much to be more proactive in terms of the forward work program rather than reactive responding to cabinet reports. And with the reduction in the meeting cycles, looking to release Democratic Services Committee and Democratic Services Officers capacity to be able to support that task-based investigative scrutiny, to be able to really help coordinate and facilitate members in that space more. In terms of the report lengths, I think we are looking in terms of actually, as you alluded to, within the summary proposals, information type and only noting type item reports will be removed from. We're looking to remove them from the formal agendas. They do take up a significant amount of pages, and I can only imagine as elected members the sheer volume of, particularly those of you that sit on multiple committees, the volume of reading time that you potentially encounter. So I think we're looking to very much, whilst I can't say that, yes, reports will be shorter, there will be work with officers in terms of actually really trying to guide as much as possible, whilst appreciating there is a firm balance in that space, that obviously officers don't expect to guide your members too much, but actually really where the areas within a particular reports, where there are reports, for example, where they may be longer because they have technical requirements they need to hit, the technical legislative requirements they need to hit, whereas actually is there an element of particular chapters, particular sections where actually you really want scrutiny to hone in on detail. So I can't make a firm commitment that yes, reports will be shorter, but generally I think we will be looking to work with officers as much as possible to try and reduce reports where appropriate, and also really ask them to highlight the areas where they think scrutiny can potentially add value. And I hope that covers both of those questions.
Thank you, James. I think it probably did, because Councillor Franks has not come back on. Councillor Wood, would you like to ask another question? Are you there? Yeah.
Apologies, a legacy hand. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. That's fine. Don't worry. Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, James. And forgive me if I'm going to ask a question that you've possibly responded to in some of the member briefings and at the scrutiny committees. But obviously, there's a couple of strands, significant strands to this document. But for me, it is about sort of how we are not just accountable to the very members that we represent, but how they feel that they have a voice. And I know that without labouring the point about past surveys, some people, some residents have felt that their voice isn't being heard. So I'm interested to learn that how, at what point when this process, if it is introduced, if this new structure takes effect, at what point will we go out and garner evidence from residents that it's making a difference to how they feel they're able to engage with the council? I am mindful that it is incumbent on us as councillors to be the voice for residents in these meetings, but clearly individual voices must also be heard. So I'd be interested to learn what process is in place around sort of assessing residents' engagement and whether it's working or not, and how residents would be able to sort of feed their views to us on the changes. That's one lengthy question. I'm sorry, James. And the other is around following on from Councillor Wood and Councillor Goodjohn's comments around the devil is in the detail. Are you able to disclose at this point sort of if there's been a one strong theme emerging from not just the sort of any scrutiny committees, but across other groups, the opposition groups and fellow councillors? Is there one theme that one sort of key response that is already evident in the feedback that you've had so far that you can disclose right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. Yeah, two very good questions there. In terms of measuring the impact with the public, so cited within the report, question from the Let's Talk About Life in the Vale survey. Apologies, I always get the words in the wrong order for it, but so that will be So you do have the benchmark there for what it is currently, and have been working with comms, and they are looking to rerun that exercise shortly. So it will, and then look to run it every other year, so we can track the progress against that particular indicator longer term. Additionally, I believe we're also able to support WLGA are also undertaking a national benchmarking exercise surrounding this resident survey type of work, so we'll be able to see actually the public perception in terms of the democratic functioning, is that aligned to what national indicators are saying? Is it back in the trend? Is it not, or is it in the other direction? So we will be able to monitor that impact. Additionally, if any proposed changes are made, we will be looking at a communications campaign to make members of the public aware of these changes as well, and raise awareness of the scrutiny functions. And whilst I appreciate social media isn't a perfect means for engagement, it has its limitations, it will be a good way of gauging over time, essentially, in terms of actually how the public have perceived these changes. In terms of the second, also just a note on that point, in terms of the participation, we'll be hoping for interested residents to get involved in specific task and finish groups. So if they're community members within your wards who may have interest in particular groups, particular topics, particular pertinent themes, there's a real opportunity for them to actually, we'll be looking to actively promote in terms of, for example, we have a task and finish group coming up on X topic. Would you like to get involved, for example? So it will be that active promotion of the work that's ongoing and the opportunities to get involved on an ongoing basis, which should hopefully improve the democratic deficit. But I probably would like to say at this juncture that I'm not single-handedly going to be responsible for improving the public perception of people's views of politics in general, because that's a wider national conversation that's unfortunately far beyond my control. And then secondly, probably in terms of your second question, in terms of the emerging themes from other groups, I'm happy to disclose, I think generally it feels like members are for wanting to release capacity to be able to do more in-depth work and really garnet and utilise the skills and talents across the chambers. I've only been in post for a short amount of time, but already see a number of members who are offering, what about this topic, etc. And there's a real energy and enthusiasm starting to come surrounding the potential opportunities within the investigative scrutiny space, which is very exciting, which is really quite exciting to see. I think one of the areas that will be reflected back to Cabinet, which has been raised by this committee, members of this committee tonight again, and that has been fed back from other committees. It's very much around this committee sizes and remits, which is very much noted, and we will have conversations with Cabinet on just to really work in terms of actually, we need to, whilst I appreciate trying to get anything structurally isn't perfect, it's just the sheer size of the work of the council and the integrated nature of the work of it. I think it's very much an ongoing conversation surrounding that one in terms of remits, roles and responsibilities of individual committee areas. So I think that's been the largest theme so far that we'll be taking forward with Cabinet to discuss further in terms of what that looks like before any formal firm proposals are made. So hopefully I answers your question, Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Thank you. Chair, may I just come in? It's just on the comm strategy, and as the champion for older people, I'm always sort of conscious of social media's limitations and how toxic it is, to be honest, and so many people are removing themselves from that very platform. So I assume then that the comm strategy will be flexible and will adapt the messages and the language used for various forums that we support. And obviously, if we're taking the message out to schools and colleges to ensure that younger voices are heard too, that would be really useful. And I look forward to seeing the messages that are put out and how we as members can ensure that we communicate the changes to residents. As I've said, it's incumbent on all of us to do so. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. And yeah, there is a key. We will share any communications as and when, but in particularly in terms of children's voice, we are already starting to work with youth services in terms of some of their participation elements to really join the dots up as much as possible to really maximise that reach. So look forward to sharing that with members as and when well, if, as and when it starts to materialise further. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Councillor Carroll, I'll bring you in before Councillor John, as he's our cabinet member here tonight. Would you like to ask your question, or just say what you think your comments are on the proposal? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll keep them brief because I've already spoken on this matter at Democratic Services Committee and in the various member briefings. From my point of view, I appreciate these are only proposals at this stage, but any move to reduce the number of committees from 5 to 4 would not have my support or that of my group. I think this evening we've seen the breadth of things that committees cover. I mean, I'll be careful how I phrase this because I'm not aiming it at you, Chair, but I had a number of questions on a serious overspend within the Social Services Department. I wasn't able to ask all of those questions due to lack of time. And increasing the workload of committees, reducing them, is going to, in my mind, reduce the opportunity for members to provide that level of scrutiny. I appreciate that there are other reforms being considered as well, but I would once again make clear that any attempt to reduce the number of committees will be seen by the public as an attempt to reduce scrutiny by the ruling group, and I would urge the authority to be very mindful of that when bringing forward final proposals. One other question I will ask, and this relates more to the process of all of this. This has gone to scrutiny committees now. It's been to Democratic Services Committee. We don't actually have final proposals. It's my understanding from reading the papers that this will not be coming back to this committee or back to Democratic Services when those final proposals are drawn up. They will be going straight to full council. I'm concerned about that because the nature of debate in full council is very different. It's a different format. It's not one where we can ask probing questions and go back and forward with those answering them. It's very much you make a speech, maybe take an intervention, and that's that. So I would expect this to come back to scrutiny when we have final proposals so that we can go through them line by line in depth. And I would request an assurance that that opportunity will be provided in advance of these proposals going to full council.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. And just to be clear, certainly from my position as chair, it isn't about the number of questions you want to ask, and anybody else for that matter. It's just they're not coming through chair to ask your questions. That's it. I hope that you would be as involved and ask as many questions and come up with as many recommendations as you possibly can. But please just respect the chair and come back through the chair. That's it. That's all. James, I don't know if the passage of this proposal was to come back to us. Please fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Carroll, for your comments. So whilst this item won't formally be coming back to committee, there will be the opportunity for members to feedback ahead of full council. So this isn't the final juncture for this conversation to end around some feedback. I wouldn't like to indicate that at all. I will say it's at full council, the proposal will not be line by in terms of managing expectations, it will not be line by line. Vouch shall do this in terms of scrutiny. Vouch shall do this in terms of scrutiny function moving forward. In terms of X, Y, and Z exhaustive detail, it is very much looking at the concepts and principles and laying the foundations for the following municipal year. But generally, the proposals we will be once they are finalised, we will be holding a members briefing session, just to really take members through them and have the opportunity to feedback before council. And if deemed appropriate, we will potentially explore the need for a special meeting ahead of council. But at this juncture, it's very much intended that actually there's been lots of member engagement to date surrounding it, helping really shape these proposals. It's going through the scrutiny in various committee cycles now as we speak, to take them back to whilst there will be an element of refining them based on all of the feedback we've received in the previous 3 to 6 weeks, I think to take them again through a potential committee cycle and elongate the process when we do need to get this in place for the May AGM. I think unfortunately the timelines don't correlate as cleanly as they can on that front, but equally members will have the opportunity to get involved with a follow-up session once the proposals are finalised. So there will be the opportunity to really provide your feedback on any final proposals and share views ahead of full council and ahead of the formal approval of them. So just to give that assurance, appreciate. There is also, if members deem appropriate, there is also the call-in process, which if they do deem an item that we want to call it into scrutiny, by all means, we would also need to consider that as a constitutional element in place as well to be able to support that process. But as it currently stands, this would be the last formal public scrutiny meeting as such, but not the last opportunity for members to get involved in seeing this proposal before it's shared wider and it starts going through its formal chain.
Sorry for the delay there, everybody. I don't know what was happening there with my activation button. Thank you, James. And I know that Councillor Carroll and other members have expressed their concerns with reducing the number of committees, so that you're well aware of that comment, aren't you? And also the weight of the scope of the committee meetings as well. I think Councillor Goodjohn picked up on that. Councillor Carroll, you've still got your hand up and you're quite welcome to come back in, or is that a legacy hand? Where are you with that one?
Just two quick things, Chair. First of all, appreciate your clarification on that. I will endeavour to go through the Chair in future and appreciate that clarification. The second point, James, I was a bit concerned by that sort of idea that this need to put this through ahead of the AGM. If we're making quite radical changes to the way scrutiny functions in this authority, I don't think we should rush things. I think we should make sure we get them right. And I do get a bit concerned about these sort of time pressures, because that does lead to the perception, and again, I choose my words carefully here, but the perception that these are being sort of rammed through, especially when you're working to such a tight deadline. And I would ask the authority to be mindful of that.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Goodjohn, would you like to come back in quickly?
Yeah, just to try and I think effectively what you said, Chair. I would say as a kind of compromise position, I'm not quite as hardline as Councillor Carroll, but I am concerned about the final makeup of those committees. So if we could even recommend to Cabinet that they review and consider the number and the workload of the final committees. Otherwise, we're happy to note the report. That would work for me. I would be happy to support that as a recommendation.
Well, I've got a sticky activation button today, everybody. Yeah, I think that's perfectly acceptable. If that's okay with you, Councillor Carroll, we'll put that as a recommendation. Councillor John, you've waited very patiently as you are a cabinet member. Please come in and have your comments.
Yeah, well,
thank
you, Madam Chairman. If this report goes through and it's adopted, this won't be the first time that we've had task and finish groups. We had a very good period. I think it was between 2008 and 2012. And I sat on a task and finish group dealing with issues in Penarth. And I believe at that time it was highways. But certainly these task and finish groups can investigate and actually go out to the towns and the areas of concern, whether it be social services, education, any service that we have, and they can really delve in to that subject. And quite honestly, I think that will play a big part in this, if this proposal does go through. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We're going back to what we did some years ago with this, and it was successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. James, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come back in, or is that a legacy hand?
If it's just to come back into
yeah, thank you.
Both to Councillor Goodjohn and Councillor Carroll. Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn, for the recommendations. I've noted that one, so thank you. That's very much appreciated. Councillor Carroll, just to provide assurance that we're not really looking to rush and towards in that we have been engaging since October with members in a variety of ways, but we very much note your comments in terms of the timeliness. But equally, I think we have a responsibility for not making this too protracted a process and elongating it, whereas actually the spirit of what we're trying to do is to really garner the energy to our policy making to make it as efficient as possible. So just to say, we have been engaging for a long time through scrutiny chairs and vice chairs since October. So there has been a long elongated timeline into this one. It's not looking to rush it through for the AGM, but do appreciate concerns in terms of timeliness. But just to really assure you on that front, that it hasn't. We're not looking to rush something in a 6-weekly basis. There has been this considerable lead-in time in terms of the development of this work.
Thank you, James, and thank you, members, for a very constructive debate there on this matter. I think a lot of our comments have already been echoed, but Amy, if they can just be recorded as well. So that's to do with the additional resource for democratic services. Will there be one? I think there's also additional comments made. Well, we'll use that as a recommendation, if that's okay. We'll just recommend that Cabinet have a look again at the scope of each of these scrutiny committees and whether the number as well, whether we should be 4, whether we should be 5, because of the weight of the work. And if everybody's happy with that recommendation, that would be great. And we'll move to the next agenda item. Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Okay, so agenda item 8, everybody, is the annual delivery plan monitoring report, Q3 performance. Who have we got taking this through this one? Is it Matt again? No, it's Tom. Hello, Tom. Good to see you.
Yes, and you too. Thank you very much for taking this report. As you say, Chair, this is Q3, so as at the end of December of 2024 in terms of progress against the ADP. I'll be really brief in introducing the report, but as always, a summary presentation has been produced for elected members. That's Appendix A. I know some elected members really welcome all of the details, so if you want to see that, that's in Appendix B, but it's summarised within Appendix A. And the presentation, members will note, this time is an interactive one. So if members have been into the presentation, you'll see that on all of the charts, you're able to click onto them and you can drill in to get more details. So that's just an example of where the team are trying to use more digital tools to give members access to lots of information, but also to summarise it up as well. So the first couple of slides, 2 and 3 of the presentation, show the overall performance against all actions and measures within the corporate plan, or the ADP, sorry, for 2024-25. Overall, the performance is green at the moment. In terms then of the next section of the presentation, that's the scrutiny committee specific information. And you can see across the 4 wellbeing objectives some of the achievements during Q3 for elected members to see. And then in terms of the actions and measures being tracked by this committee, pleasingly, 87% of those actions are currently green. And of the measures that we're using to look at performance, the majority of those that have been measured during this period are green, but would obviously like to draw members' attention to the fact that most of those measures are annually reported. So you'll see the end of year performance against those when you consider the report in July, and that's obviously subject to some of the changes James was just describing. As ever, for transparency and for ease of scrutiny, the exceptions against the actions that are not on track and those measures which are not performing to target are then included as well. As always, for elected members, we've tried to draw out some themes that we're seeing within the committee's particular area of interest, both in terms of emerging areas of development, but also some of the areas that are particularly concerning and what needs to be done to attract, to deal with those. In terms of emerging areas of concern for this committee, there won't be any surprise that as a result of the financial pressures, progress against Project Zero, and the availability of grant funding, inflationary pressures, and some of the workforce things. I want to give members some assurance that these are things that are kept under regular review by the Strategic Leadership Team, and members will be aware, of course, that Governance and Audit Committee considered the Corporate Risk Register at its meeting on Monday evening for this same period. All of the issues that are highlighted within the performance report as being of any degree of concern are fully reflected within that risk register and thoroughly reviewed by Governance and Audit Committee and Cabinet as well. So that's a really brief overview of what I know is a wide-ranging report. I'd be more than happy to take any questions. We'll do my best to answer them this evening, and if they relate to other service areas, we'll be able to get some answers back to members by email. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Quickly before I ask anyone else to come in, can I just ask you, I mean, I zone in on the reds as you would do, and there's an awful lot of green, so that is great. And I know this will be something that is of concern of yours and that you will be working behind the scenes. But can you just give us an indication of the improvements we're making to C1V? Because at the moment, I know it is a work in progress, but please tell us, please share.
Yeah, certainly, Chair. I know this is an issue that has been of interest to your committee, and it's most definitely of interest to me in the work that I do with colleagues in customer relations. A couple of things. I suppose one initially is making sure that we're supporting that team as far as is possible, and that's both in terms of ensuring that we've got sufficient resource within the contact centre, and that resource and those colleagues are well supported and trained. We've introduced some changes to recruitment practices recently as a result of some of the pressures. So what we're doing now is making sure that we've got a pipeline of candidates who are approved, ready for to join the council when those positions become vacant. We've seen some real successes where colleagues join us and enjoy their time in the contact centre, but also then learn about other areas of the council, which then means that they go on to work in other departments, which is great on one hand, but it does mean that we see turnover within the contact centre. So the important thing for us as a team is making sure that we've got a pipeline of ready candidates who are able to come in and take on their positions. And then secondly, in terms of the performance, what we're making sure that we do is focus in on giving our residents the opportunity to interact with the council in increasingly flexible ways. So a lot of work is being done in terms of digital channels. We're seeing that people are increasingly expecting to be able to transact with the council online and in quicker, more responsive ways. So the team have been reviewing the top 20 customer journeys is the name of the project, so looking at really streamlining the way that those services are provided, but also importantly making sure that residents can interact with us online. And what we're seeing is that where we make really good online services available for more transactional services, there's a real appetite for residents to use them. What that means then is that we're able to free up time to make more productive use of that resource in order to deal with those kind of issues that actually need people, need our residents to be able to have a conversation with one of our colleagues directly. So what we're seeing is a shift within the contact centre away from the more traditional things that we maybe would have seen in the past, such as refuse related queries, recycling, towards more things around adult social care, housing, for example, where that human interaction is really important. So able to focus the resource in those kind of ways.
Thank you, Tom. That sounds really interesting. And when Tony comes back with an update for us, hopefully he'll be able to share with us some more good news on the new digital channels then, and also yes, the succession planning, because that sounds like having that, as you said, having the constant flow of people because they go on to other parts of the department. That's something that you're obviously going to need to not just put in place for tomorrow, but have it for the future. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions then for Tom on the ADP? No hands. Okay. Thank you. That's absolutely fine. So again, this was a report for noting, so we don't have any recommendations. So if everyone is happy, don't want to ask any questions, and would put a hand then to move to the next agenda item, I'd be grateful. Thank you, Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. Okay. Agenda item 9 then, which is any item that the chair has declared urgent part 1. I don't have one. Agenda item 10, any items which the chair has declared are urgent part 2. This is the press public exclusion bit, but we don't have one there. So that actually concludes business for tonight, everybody. Date of the next meeting is the 9th of April, and I do appreciate that is just a fortnight away, but it won't be a particularly long agenda, and I still look forward to seeing you all again in a fortnight. So thanks everyone for your participation and your patience, and have a good evening. Thank you.